ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Cotonou. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Gambian students take to the streets over rising homicide cases, calling for tougher punishment for offenders.
Bring back the death penalty. Bring back the death penalty. An eye for an eye. An eye for an eye. A life for life. A life for life. Blood for blood. Blood for blood. Blood for blood. Blood for blood.
Janine blockade in Western Mali depicts hardship with food and fuel shortages.
Everything is in short supply in Yoru, but the most striking situation is at the market. When you go to buy a 50-kilogram bag of rice, you are usually forced to join long queues.
WFP warns that worsening hunger is driving insecurity in northern Nigeria, and ECOWAS pledges improved service delivery to West Africans as it inaugurates its new headquarters in Abuja. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
We're glad to have you join us. We begin in the Gambia, where students of the State University took to the streets on Thursday, demanding tougher action against rising violent crimes, including the reintroduction of the death penalty. The protest follows a string of fatal stabbings, among them the killing of a former University of the Gambia Student Union leader, Yunusa Mbai. Demonstrators delivered petitions to the Ministers of Justice, Interior and Health, urging the government to adopt stronger measures to curb the growing wave of homicide cases. Christopher Aticho has the details.
Bring back the death penalty. Bring back the death penalty. An eye for an eye. An eye for an eye. A life for life.
Marching through the streets of Banjul with placards and chanting slogans to the country's National Assembly, the students demanded justice for former student leader Yunusa Mbai and other young Gambians who have been killed in recent weeks in a series of fatal stabbings. Mohammed Ngalan is one of the leaders of the protests.
The continued occurrence of preventable violent crimes undermines public confidence in the country's security institutions and calls for immediate and decisive action. Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
The protesters called for swift prosecution of murder suspects and urged the government to reintroduce the death penalty, arguing that stronger punishment is needed to deter violent crime.
The death penalty is the most effective deterrent factor for all states and everywhere. So why Gambia? Why are we hell-bent on protecting and feeding the murderer? Why are we hell-bent on protecting and feeding the killers? Why are we hell-bent on continuously victimizing our fellow Gambians? Either one of us could be victims tomorrow.
Ahead of the protest, Minister of Information Dr. Ismaila Cisse said the government would not tolerate the recent wave of violent crime and assured the public that those responsible would be brought to justice.
Now we are going to have a zero compromise architects on crime in this country. And I think the IDP has already discussed that with the state. Zero compromise. We cannot allow that to happen in this country. And the government will take all the measures necessary to ensure we protect our citizens.
Capital punishment remains a subject of debate in the Gambia, where executions were last carried out under former President Yahya Jammeh. The recent rise in violent crime has renewed cause for its return.
Blood for blood! 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 Respect for respect! Respect for respect! Respect for respect!
That was Christopher Aticho with that report. Stay tuned as we'll be hearing from the Gambia's police PRO in our guest interview segment. Now in Mali, the blockade imposed by the group for the support of Islam and Muslims, Janim, on the western town of Nyoro continues to weigh heavily on residents. Access to necessities and food items, particularly rice, is becoming increasingly difficult, while supply trucks along the route remain blocked. Fuel shortages are also worsening the situation, disrupting electricity supply and slowing down economic activity. Francis Boniface has the details in this report filed by our Bamako correspondent Aliu Cham.
Residents of Nioro are facing growing hardship as a blockade imposed by Jenim continues to restrict the movement of goods into the town. For many families, buying a bag of rice now means spending hours in long queues, only to find that the limited supplies available are insufficient to meet demand. One resident who asked not to be identified for security reasons describes the situation.
Everything is in short supply in Nioro, but the most striking situation is at the market. When you go to buy a 50-kilogram bag of rice, you are usually forced to join long queues. This is because only a limited quantity is made available each day, and once that allocation is exhausted, no further supplies can be sold.
Beyond the shortage of food, fuel has also become increasingly scarce.
Electricity and water supply are no longer stable as fuel shortages persist. All fuel stations in general are closed. Where fuel is available, the price of a liter has surged to between 2,500 and 3,000 CFA francs.
The shortages have led to more frequent power cuts, disrupting businesses and making daily life even more difficult for residents. With no immediate end to the blockade in sight, many families in Nioro are being forced to adapt to worsening living conditions as concerns grow over the humanitarian and economic impact of the prolonged siege.
That was a report by our Bamako correspondent Aliou Cham, voiced by Francis Boniface. Now, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has announced the closure of its office in Burkina Faso following the suspension of the country's authorities earlier this year. Operations will be phased out gradually, with the office expected to shut down by November 30th. According to a statement from the UN body, Nadide Tete has the details.
The announcement was made in a communiqué published on Thursday, July 2. It confirms that the UN Human Rights Office in Burkina Faso will be progressively closed until the end of November, following a 3-month suspension of its activities in the country. In the statement, UN High Commissioner Volker Turk expressed regret over what he described as the decision by Burkinabe authorities to suspend operations indefinitely, saying efforts to resolve the situation through dialogue had not succeeded. Before the official announcement, the UN resident coordinator ad interim met Burkina Faso's foreign minister on June 30. He explained that the closure process follows provisions in the host country agreement, which allows for the shutdown of UN offices in cases of prolonged suspension of activities. The UN system has also requested the designation of a national focal point to support the orderly winding down of operations. The Bureau's activities were initially suspended in April by the authorities following a UN statement calling for the protection of civic space in the country.
That was Nadide Tete with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Togo, the authorities have conducted an assessment of the communities affected by floods, including material resources mobilized and measures taken to manage the crisis. So far, no deaths have been reported, but authorities recorded several damages, including displacement. An update of the assessment was provided Thursday during a meeting organized by the National Agency for Water Protection. The gathering brought together several stakeholders from the Disaster Risk Reduction and Response Platform, as well as representatives from the 13 municipalities of the Greater Lomé Autonomous District. Among the participants was Jean-Luc Asiakoli, Communications Officer of the Gulf 4 municipality in Lomé. He explains the outcome of the meeting.
Ce qui concerne la situation globale, après ces pluies torrentielles.
This concerns the overall situation after these torrential rainfalls of June 28 to the 29th, with a threshold at 50 millimeters. But today, according to the National Agency for Civil Protection, the threshold has been exceeded and reached 200 millimeters. The agency reported 3 deaths, 2 in Lomé and 1 in Tablico. In the commune of Gulf 4, several houses are flooded and several families have lost material goods. A lot of damage has been recorded, and we are trying at the town hall level to provide some relief to our populations through our major means.
À travers nos maigres moyens de nos populations. Pour l'heure, Au niveau de la commune du Golfe 4.
For now, in the Gulf 4 district, we haven't reached that point yet. And I don't think the National Agency for Civil Protection has reached that point either. We have always urged our residents not to build in flood-prone areas. But the fact is, as you say, it happens every year. We are digging in the desert, but I think that at some point, we risk resorting to a radical method, which is to completely raise the flood-prone areas to see how we do it.
Inondable pour voir comment on fait.
That was Jean-Luc Asiakoli, Communications Officer of the Gulf 4 Municipality in Lomé. Turning to conflict and food security, the United Nations warns that worsening hunger in northern Nigeria is fueling recruitment by bandits and other armed groups as millions struggle to feed themselves. The World Food Programme says tackling food insecurity alongside military operations is essential to restoring lasting peace in the region. The UN agency warns that security gains could remain fragile without sustained humanitarian support. Our correspondent in Abuja, Yechenu Sasitu, reports.
The World Food Programme raised the concern in a statement following the release of the latest food security analysis. The agency says more than 17 million people across conflict-affected states in northern Nigeria are projected to face crisis, emergency, or catastrophic levels of hunger during this year's lean season. WFP Deputy Country Director in Nigeria, Serene Loom, says the agency is finding it increasingly difficult to provide life-saving assistance.
Across all of northern Nigeria, we have been seeing an increase and spread in insurgent attacks and violence. Families are being forced from their home, and it's getting harder for WFP to access people who urgently need food assistance.
Security analyst Olumayowa Olani says the findings reinforce the need for Nigeria to look beyond military action in tackling insecurity.
The government needs to step up how it manages resource and how it allocates resource to the benefits of Nigerians, not to the benefit of some few, but the benefit of the whole of Nigeria, so that Nigerians feel the sense of being a Nigerian.
Director of Food Security and Nutrition Analysis at the World Food Programme, Jean-Martin Bawa, says the food security crisis in northern Nigeria is both predictable and preventable.
So as the highest level of concern, Nigeria has been added to this group. This is because there are projections that a group of population in Borno State may face catastrophic levels of food insecurity during the outlook period. The central message is clear that these crises are foreseeable, they're predictable, and the worst outcomes can be prevented.
The World Food Programme is calling for increased investment in humanitarian assistance, agriculture, and livelihoods to reduce hunger and prevent vulnerable communities from falling deeper into insecurity. For WADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
Migration is fast becoming one of the world's most contentious political issues across Africa, Europe, North America, and Gulf. Governments are tightening immigration policies, reinforcing border security, and ramping up deportations of undocumented migrants. In Africa, several countries have intensified crackdowns on irregular migration, while in South Africa, pressure is mounting on authorities to deport undocumented foreign nationals. In this analysis, Abdullah Hassan examines the shifting global migration landscape, Africa's response, and the lessons emerging from the crisis.
Beyond the continent, the United States has expanded immigration enforcement, detaining and deporting thousands of undocumented migrants. Across Europe, governments are adopting tougher asylum and border policies, while countries such as the United Kingdom and Italy are exploring new approaches to managing migration. Britain, for example, under a multi-million-dollar scheme, sought to transfer some asylum seekers to Rwanda, a controversial plan that faced legal challenges and drew criticism from human rights organizations. Meanwhile, Gulf states continue tightening regulations governing foreign workers. Supporters say these tougher measures are essential to protect national security, dismantle human trafficking networks, and restore confidence in immigration systems. Critics, however, argue that stricter borders rarely stop migration. Instead, they often push desperate people towards more dangerous routes controlled by criminal smuggling networks. For Africa, the implications are profound. Conflict, political instability, unemployment, corruption, and the growing impacts of climate change continue to drive thousands of Africans to seek opportunities beyond their borders. Here, experts say the solution extends beyond tighter border controls or stronger enforcement. They say African governments must tackle the root causes of migration by investing in job creation, improving governance, strengthening security, expanding education, building resilience against climate change, and improving frameworks such as the ECOWAS Free Movement Protocol. Remittances from Africans living abroad remain a vital source of income for millions of families, contributing billions of dollars every year to education, healthcare, housing, and small businesses.
That was Abdullah Hassan with that analysis. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and around the world at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Gambian students take to the streets over rising homicide cases, calling for tougher punishment for offenders. Jenin blockade in western Mali deepens hardship with food and fuel shortages. WFP warns that worsening hunger is driving insecurity in northern Nigeria. Still ahead in the news, ECOWAS pledges improved service delivery to West Africans as it inaugurates its new headquarters in Abuja. We also have the guest interview on sports news. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Thank you for staying with us. In Guinea, the Court for the Repression of Economic and Financial Crimes has delivered its verdict in the appeal trial of former Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassori Fofana. The court cleared him of charges of embezzlement of public funds, but found him guilty of illicit enrichment and money laundering. His sentence has been reduced from 5 years to 3 years and 9 months in prison, along with a fine of 2 billion Guinean francs. Here is Sankule Janko with a report filed by our Conakry correspondent Chevno Alpha Ibrahima Balde.
The Appeals Chamber of the Court for the Repression of Economic and Financial Offences partially overturned the earlier judgment against the former Prime Minister Dr. Ibrahima Kassori Fofana. He was cleared of embezzlement charges, but found guilty of illicit enrichment and money laundering. His defense lawyer, Maitre Sidiki Berete, criticized the ruling.
We believe in our client's innocence. He was wrongly held on charges of illicit enrichment because the amount seized from the two accounts has neither been proven by the court, by the prosecution, or by the civil party to originate from the Guinean state. Kassori is a national figure. He served as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and has been involved in the governance of Guinea for nearly 40 years. If Mr. Kassori had benefited from 30 billion as sovereign funds, the amount seized from his accounts does not even reach 20 billion. To claim illicit enrichment in these conditions is not consistent. There are contradictions in the reasoning.
However, the civil party welcomed the decision, saying the ruling marks an important step in the fight against corruption and economic crimes in Guinea. Following the verdict, both the defense and the prosecution have filed appeals before the Supreme Court.
That was Sankule Janko with that report. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has inaugurated its new headquarters in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, in a ceremony marked by renewed calls and commitments to deliver more tangible results for citizens. Speaking at the event, the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government and president of Sierra Leone, Julius Madabio, said the bloc must now translate its long-standing achievements into concrete benefits for West Africans.
We gather to inaugurate the headquarters and to renew our collective promise to the people of West Africa. We gather to reaffirm our faith in the power of regional solidarity and to declare our shared determination to build an ECOWAS that is stronger, more responsive, and even more worthy of the trust and aspirations of the people we serve. History does not remember generations for the buildings that they construct. It remembers the values that they upheld and the lives that are transformed. This new headquarters building is therefore the permanent home of our shared vision, collective ambition, and enduring commitment to regional integration and prosperity. Within these walls, important decisions will be made that will shape the prosperity of future West Africans. And I speak of more than 450 million West Africans. That is both an extraordinary privilege and a profound responsibility that demands wisdom, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to the people that we serve.
ECOWAS Chairman and President of Sierra Leone, Julius Maada Bio, speaking there.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
For our guest interview this afternoon, the recent surge in homicide cases, particularly fatal stabbings, has heightened public concern over violent crime in the Gambia. The killings, including that of a former University of the Gambia Students' Union leader, Yunus Sambai, have sparked widespread debate about public safety and prompted calls for tougher measures, including the reintroduction of the death penalty. To discuss the recent incidents, the police response, and what is being done to curb the violent crimes, I spoke to Modu Musa Sisao, Public Relations Officer of the Gambia Police Force.
In recent times, especially in this month, the number of incidents leading to death, especially as a result of stabbing, has increased. In general, it doesn't mean that the incident rate of crime in the country has increased. And I think this is where the debate is. People are saying the country is not safe, there are a lot of crimes and XYZ. As far as we are concerned, the number of crime in terms of rate has not increased, it's actually reduced. But this specific crime, which is part of the crime in general, that is stabbing incident, yes, of recent we have seen a lot of that happening, and it's a concern to everybody. It's a concern to us, a concern to the security, and to notice the pattern, the Office of the Inspector General of Police has instructed all regional commissioners across the nation to heighten police patrols and also visibilities. But the concern is that if you look at some of these cases, you realize that most of the cases would actually occur in private places, let's say in compounds, at homes and apartments. So these are not organized crime. This is the misconception people might have, because when you say crime, is it organized? Is it like people went out to kill people? But the circumstances, when we looked at them, we realized that these are between people who knew each other, people who have business together, people who are mutual friends in one way or the other. Looking at all of this, or putting all of this into context, you will realize that there is little that the police could do at that material time, because it is spontaneous. And I don't think this constitutes what we call insecurity in the country. Naturally, police would not be in people's garages. Naturally, police would not be posted in people's compound. These are people's privacy and all of that.
But let's speak on prosecution. There have been a lot of issues regarding prosecuting these individuals on time. What are the issues that the police is currently facing regarding this?
I don't think people should fault the police for this. So what police would do is, naturally, these are capital offenses. Murder is a capital offense. So when people are alleged to have committed murder, we investigate. And when we investigate and we arrest, and most of the cases, almost more than 90% of the cases are, the suspects are arrested. They are investigated. A case file is built. Now, these people are mentioned. For example, we know you cannot keep anybody more than 72 hours. So what we do is we take the case, the initial investigation to court, and mention the matter to court that this person has committed this, and under the circumstances he should not be bailed because we need to continue investigation. And also the matter should also be transferred to the High Court. So mostly these people are now remanded at Mile 2 while investigation is ongoing. When investigation is done, the matter is transferred to the High Court. And at the High Court, the police do not prosecute. The police only prosecute at the lower court. That is the magistrate court. So when we are done, we transfer the file to the state, and that's where the state councils will take it up.
As you mentioned, many Gambians say they are becoming increasingly concerned about their safety. What assurances can you give the public that the police are on top of the situation?
We have our elements all around the country. We are on patrols, we are on visibility patrols, we have our day, night, evening patrols, vehicles going in and out. And our stations are open to everybody. Anybody who sees anything, suspects anything, who has an issue with anybody, and I think it's important for people not to take the law into their own hands. And I think that's what is important, very important. If you have an issue, you have a problem with anybody, it's better you go and report it to the police.
That was Modu Musa Sisao, Public Relations Officer of the Gambia Police Force. Alright, it's time for some sports news. The FIFA 2026 World Cup tournament is still on, and I have my colleague Sankule Janko here with me in studio for some analysis. Sankule, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Everett Jai.
Okay, alright, Sankule. Algeria exited from the tournament with a disappointing 2-0 defeat to Switzerland. What can you tell us?
Yes, indeed. Algeria's World Cup campaign ended in a disappointment after a 2-0 defeat to Switzerland in the round of 32, like you rightly said. Well, the match also marked the end of an era for the Desert Foxes as Captain Riyad Mahrez made his final appearance for the national team. Well, the 119 Cup veteran who led Algeria to the 2019 African Cup of Nations title called on supporters to remain patient and back the next generation of players as the team begins a new chapter.
Portugal and Spain have both qualified for the next round. Would we say it is not a surprise?
Well, certainly. Spain and Portugal have both secured their places in the round of 16. Well, Spain cruised to a 3-0 victory over Austria, while Portugal edged Croatia 2-1. Well, Cristiano Ronaldo opened the scoring from the penalty spot. A controversial penalty, I must say, the first ever goal in the FIFA World Cup knockout match for him before Gonçalo Ramos netted the winner for the Portuguese side.
So Portugal will meet with Spain in the round of 16.
Exactly, Veronique. And if anything, experts say the match will renew their rivalry after Portugal defeated the reigning European champions on penalties in the last summer's UEFA Nations League final. Promises to be very interesting. Lamine Yamal versus Cristiano Ronaldo.
What are the fixtures today, Sankle? Tell us.
Yes, indeed. The Black Stars of Ghana take on Colombia later tonight at 1 a.m., hoping to reach the knockout stage for the third time after 2006 and 2010 when they famously reached the quarterfinals. But before that, earlier at 6 p.m., Egypt faced Australia as the Pharaohs look to extend their historic run after reaching the second round for the first time. Well, the winners will meet either Argentina or Cape Verde in the round.
We are expecting a Cape Verde versus Argentina game, Sankle, a much anticipated game.
Yes, I think that's largely due to the Blue Stars' impressive performance as Cape Verde, of course, throughout the tournament. It's also an exciting fixture because it pits one of the tournament's favourites against the underdogs. And if Cape Verde's performance is so far anything to go by, this is a must-watch match when it kicks off at 10 p.m.
All right, thank you very much, Sankle. Just so you know, Ghana also plays by midnight, so there is so much to anticipate in the ongoing 2026 FIFA World Cup. And that's how we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudoju for the technical assistance. Remember, you can listen to us online at wadr.org or download our mobile application. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening.